the most controversial dynasty in NFL history. The team that redefined what it meant to be America's team. The franchise that won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, then imploded from their own arrogance. The organization that turned the NFL draft into their personal shopping mall and made other teams look like college programs. The Cowboys of the 1990s didn't just win championships, they dominated the league with a swagger so intoxicating.
How about them Cowboys?
It became their ultimate downfall. How does a team go from a 1-15 laughingstock to 3-time champion in just 4 years? How do you build the most talented roster in modern NFL history only to watch it crumble because 2 men couldn't share credit for their creation? This is the story of the rise and fall of the most dominant and most hated dynasty the National Football League has ever seen. The origin story. The date was December 18th, 1988, Texas Stadium, once the cathedral of championship football, echoed with boos as the Dallas Cowboys stumbled to their final defeat of a historically awful season. 3 wins, 13 losses. The worst record in franchise history. Empty seats stretched across the upper deck like missing teeth in a broken smile. Season ticket holders who had witnessed 5 Super Bowl appearances in the previous 2 decades were now staying home, their loyalty finally exhausted by years of decline. Tom Landry, the only head coach the Cowboys had ever known, stood on the frozen sideline in his familiar fedora, a 64-year-old monument to a dynasty that had been crumbling for half a decade. The man who had built America's team from an expansion afterthought into a cultural phenomenon was now presiding over its funeral. The doomsday defense was extinct. The offensive innovation that had sidelined the 1970s was obsolete. The Cowboys weren't just bad, they were irrelevant. But 60 miles away in Arkansas, Jerry Jones was watching that disaster with the eyes of a man who saw opportunity where others saw only failure. The oil and gas millionaire had played football for the Razorbacks alongside a defensive back named Jimmy Johnson, and now both men possessed something the Cowboys desperately needed: hunger. Jones didn't want to own just any NFL franchise. He wanted to own the most valuable sports property in America. Johnson didn't want to coach just any team. He wanted to prove his college success could translate to the ultimate stage. On February 25th, 1989, Jones purchased the Cowboys for $150 million and immediately fired the legendary Landry, replacing him with Johnson. The reaction was swift and brutal. Dallas fans burned Jones in effigy. Sports Illustrated called it the most shocking coaching change in NFL history. Nobody understood that Jones and Johnson weren't just changing coaches. They were about to revolutionize how championship teams were built. The first sign of hope came not in victories, but in vision. While the Cowboys finished Johnson's first season, 1-15, tied for the worst record in franchise history, Johnson was systematically dismantling and rebuilding the roster with the precision of a master architect. His draft room operated like a war room, with every selection calculated towards a single objective: accumulating elite talent, regardless of conventional wisdom. Building the foundation. The foundation was built with the most audacious trade in NFL history. On October 12, 1989, Johnson shipped running back Herschel Walker, the team's only marketable star, to Minnesota for what amounted to an entire draft class. 5 players and 8 draft picks. Vikings general manager Mike Lynn thought he was acquiring a game changer. Instead, he had just handed Johnson the keys to a dynasty. The first cornerstone arrived with the first overall pick of the 1989 draft. Troy Aikman, the UCLA quarterback, cannon arm, and the demeanor of a Wall Street executive was exactly the kind of leader Johnson envisioned commanding his offense. Aikman had suffered through 3 consecutive losing seasons at UCLA, learning to maintain composure under pressure and dignity in defeat, lessons that would prove invaluable in Dallas. The second pillar came courtesy of the Walker trade. With the 17th pick of the 1990 draft, Johnson selected Emmitt Smith, a 5'9" running back from Florida, who compensated for his lack of size with vision that bordered on supernatural and competitive fire that could melt steel. NFL scouts questioned his speed. Johnson saw something more valuable, a player who made everyone around him better through sheer force of will. Johnson's philosophy differed radically from conventional NFL wisdom. Where other teams prioritized immediate needs, Johnson accumulated talent regardless of position. Where others sought veteran leadership, Johnson built through youth. Where others feared controversial personalities, Johnson embraced players who brought edge along with him. His locker room became a laboratory for championship chemistry, mixing elite athletes with demanding accountability. The early playoff runs revealed a team learning to win under pressure. The 1991 season brought their first playoff victory since 1982, a hard-fought 17-13 defeat of Chicago that announced Dallas as a legitimate contender. The following week's 38-6 destruction by Detroit in the divisional round, but it taught Johnson's young team the difference between making the playoffs and competing for championship. By 1992, the foundation was complete. The Cowboys had assembled the most talented roster in the NFL through a combination of brilliant drafting, shrewd trades, and Johnson's ability to maximize individual talent within a championship system. They weren't just ready to compete, they were ready to dominate. Reaching the pinnacle. The 1992 season arrived like a declaration of war against the rest of the National Football League. The Cowboys didn't just win 13 regular season games, they destroyed opponents with systematic precision that left coaches and analysts struggling for explanations. Their offense moved with the timing of a Swiss watch, while their defense created turnovers like a harvesting machine. The breakthrough moment came on January 17th, 1993, in the frozen wasteland of Candlestick Park. Facing defending champion San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game, the Cowboys found themselves trailing in the fourth quarter when Aikman dropped back and fired a perfect strike to Alvin Harper for a 70-yard touchdown that silenced 64,000 49er fans and announced a changing of the guard in the National Football Conference. Super Bowl 27 became a showcase of Dallas dominance that bordered on the artistic. Against the Buffalo Bills team making their third consecutive Super Bowl appearance, the Cowboys forced 9 turnovers, a Super Bowl record, and turned football's biggest game into a 52-17 highlight reel of their own perfection. It was a systematic destruction that announced the arrival of a new dynasty. But the Cowboys were just getting started. The 1993 season brought an encore performance that defied logical explanation. Despite starting 0-2, they rallied to post a 12-14 record and defended their championship with the cold efficiency of an occupying army. Super Bowl 28 saw them defeat Buffalo again, 30-13, becoming the first team in NFL history to win a Super Bowl after starting 0-2. They were larger than life, recalls Brad Sham, the longtime voice of Cowboys radio broadcasts. You'd walk into any stadium in America and see Cowboys jerseys in the stands. They transcended geography in a way that seemed almost impossible. The fan experience during those glory years bordered on the religious, with Texas Stadium becoming a pilgrimage site for football fans across the nation. The Cowboys became a symbol of American excess and achievement, their star logo as recognizable as any corporate brand. The signature moment of their sustained excellence came not in the playoffs, but on Thanksgiving Day, 1993, when the Cowboys faced the Miami Dolphins in a game that showcased everything that made them special. Leon Lett's fumble recovery for a touchdown, called back by Don Beeb's hustle, became a symbol of Dallas arrogance meeting its match. But the Cowboys won anyway, 16-14, because champions find ways to win even when their own hubris works against them. The 1995 season completed their championship trifecta with a performance that would stand as the franchise's masterpiece. Adding superstar Deion Sanders to an already loaded roster, the Cowboys captured their third title in 4 years with a 27-17 victory over Pittsburgh in Super Bowl 30. They had become the first team to win 3 championships in a 4-year span since the Green Bay Packers of the 1960s, cementing their place among the greatest dynasties in NFL history. The eventual downfall. The beginning of the end came not with defeat, but with victory. Even as the Cowboys celebrated their second consecutive championship, the foundation of their success was cracking under the weight of its own achievement. Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones, the unlikely partnership that had transformed a laughingstock into a dynasty, were discovering that success itself could be more destructive than failure. The breaking point came with shocking suddenness. On March 29, 1994, barely 8 weeks after Super Bowl 28, Johnson resigned, citing irreconcilable differences with Jones over credit and control. The architect of the most successful rebuilding project in modern football history was walking away from his creation at its absolute peak. Barry Switzer's arrival changed everything. Where Johnson had demanded perfection, Switzer preached relaxation. The discipline that had defined Johnson's teams began to erode, replaced by a country club atmosphere that valued talent over accountability. The Cowboys won another Super Bowl under Switzer in 1995, but the championship felt different. More like a farewell tour than a continuation of dominance. By 1997, the dissolution was complete. The Cowboys finished 6-10, their worst record since Johnson's rebuilding year. After the glory, the coming years would see Jones cycle through coaches like a desperate gambler changing dealers, hiring Chan Gailey, Dave Campo, Bill Parcells, Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett, and Mike McCarthy in a 2-decade quest to rediscover the magic that seemingly evaporated overnight. Each promised to restore the Cowboys to their former glory. Each ultimately failed to deliver the championship Jones craved above all else. Today, nearly 3 decades removed from their last championship, Jones presides over a franchise that seems more interested in headlines than hardware. They are generating more revenue than any team in professional sports, but not the victories that matter most. The Cowboys remain trapped in the shadow of their former glory. Where once Texas Stadium thundered with championship celebration, AT&T Stadium echoes with different ambitions. Playoff hopes rather than championship certainties. Potential rather than production. Remembering the dynasty. The 1990s Dallas Cowboys stand as perhaps the most complete team in modern NFL history. A franchise that combined elite talent with championship culture to create something approaching football perfection. Their 3 titles in 4 years represent a level of sustained excellence that few teams have achieved, and fewer still have maintained in the salary cap era. Yet their story serves as an enduring lesson about the fragility of success, about how quickly greatness can dissolve when the human elements that created it are removed or corrupted. But this story of forgotten greatness is not unique in professional football. Next time, we'll examine another dynasty that time forgot. The Miami Dolphins of the 1970s and early 1980s. A franchise that achieved the only perfect season in NFL history, won back-to-back championships, and dominated the league for over a decade with innovative offense and suffocating defense. Yet somehow have found their legacy overshadowed by dynasties that followed. The lessons of the Dallas Cowboys echo forward to every franchise that has tasted greatness and wondered why it didn't last forever. In the National Football League, as in life, empires rise and fall with equal certainty. The only question is whether we'll remember what made them great before the memory fades entirely into the unforgiving mists of sporting history.